This is Pastor Michelle from St. Paul United Church of Christ. I am here today to interview our council president, Wayne Caughman. So, Wayne, thanks for being on here today.
Sure. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're grateful to be able to interview you. So thank you so much. And we're grateful for all the work you do around church and how you've been a support and guidance during this time of quarantine and distance work. So thank you. So
Sure.
The first question I have for you is this. How long have you been a member of the church?
Well, I guess I'm an old timer and that I joined in the fall of 1969.
Okay.
So a little over 50 years ago. Be 51 here in a few months. So way back when.
Okay, so 50 years you've been a member of St. Paul.
Right.
Yeah. So you had your anniversary, I guess, last fall?
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool.
That's correct.
Very cool. And what did you first like about the church when you joined?
Well, let me go back, if I may, a minute and explain. You know, I'm a transplanted Southerner who no longer Southerner, but I came from there. I was born and raised in South Carolina.
Okay.
Went to high school there and to college at the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
And graduated with a degree in engineering.
Okay.
And I also was a member of the Air Force ROTC unit there at the university.
Okay.
And I graduated through that program as well. And of course was commissioned as a second lieutenant. And when you do that, you get a 3-year commitment at that time. Now it's 4, I think, where you go and serve a tour of duty. And my assignment was to Scott Air Force Base, which I'd never heard of, didn't know where it was, didn't know where Belleville was or anything like that. But in the meantime, back a couple months prior to graduation, NASA, our space agency, always came down to the university to interview prospective graduates and hopefully offer them jobs. And I was interviewed and I was offered a position at NASA. And the Air Force had a commitment with NASA prior to that year of 1962 of letting you serve your 3-year tour at their NASA facility, in this case in Virginia, Langley Air Force Base, rather than me coming to Scott.
Okay.
But so I went to Langley with that in mind and stayed in an apartment with a couple fellows. And while there, we got a letter from the Air Force, several of us were in this situation, saying Vietnam War is starting up. We need you to go serve you a tour and, help us out in that regard. So that sent me off to Scott. But in the meantime, NASA said, you can come back when you're done. You can have your job back. And I was working on a space satellite launch that we were doing, a real interesting communication satellite. So I went to Scott in 62, and I was, of course, from the South. And if you're a Caughman from South Carolina, you're a Lutheran. No question about it. You're always Lutheran. Everybody is Southern Lutheran. So I went to try to find a Lutheran church in the area when I got here in 62. I guess it was September of 62, as I recall. And I really couldn't find what I was looking for. I went out to Signal Hill. There was a Missouri Synod Lutheran church there. It may still be there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I participated in several of their services, but just wasn't happy. The service was completely different than I was used to. People weren't that friendly. And I gravitated to St. Paul during that time frame as well. And it was very close to what I was used to. So that's what I first liked about it. It was so similar to what I had been used to growing up as a child and a youth in South Carolina.
Okay. So you came from South Carolina, and you
Right.
You were an engineer background is your
Right.
degree, and with working for the Air Force and NASA.
Right.
Then you ended up here in um, Belleville, Illinois
Yeah.
area.
And in 65, we were offered the Air Force let us get out after our tour. And I went back to NASA
Uh-huh.
to work for another year and a half. And I was married in the meantime. And the person that I married from this area um, wanted to come back homesick. So we came back in 68. And that's how I ended up back at St. Paul in 69 and became a member at that point in time. So kind of a long story, but that's how it all evolved.
That's great. Yeah, and thank you for your service and that you had the chance to serve in the Air Force and really use your gifts of engineering and um, probably a lot of scientific background. So that's
Oh,
great.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so what's been your favorite memory at the church?
Well, I guess I have three, if I may. Um, One is the pew repairs that we undertook last year when I was still on the Business and Property Board.
Yeah.
We had a problem, as we all knew, with the veneer that was on those pews, and people had a habit of peeling that off, and it looked not too nice. And so we um, found a contractor that would repair it for us, but it was very expensive. Um, and we figured it'd be about a 3 or 4 year job. Turned out to be about 8 months. And due to the generosity of the members and the
Yeah.
support verbally and otherwise, it was just overwhelming to me that we were able to get that kind of support and it looks beautiful as far as the sanctuary itself is concerned.
Yeah.
So very, very proud of that. The second thing was, I think, I've been head usher for the last 2 years or so, and we were able to finally to get the kids, the youngsters, to help us with offering and candles, even though we're not doing that now, of course. And I think that is really was good to have them involved,
Yeah.
and hopefully will be if we get back together again.
Yeah.
Third thing, of course, is Heritage Hall and all the work that Dave and Roger Harris have done with that and others, and to see the support that came along, volunteer support of all our members to help in that regard, and to look at it the way it is now versus when we started about a year and a half or so ago, is just remarkable. So I think that's my three memories there.
Oh, very good. Very thank you. Yeah, and the generosity with people and the projects like the Pew Ends and
Mhm.
Heritage Hall has been amazing.
Absolutely.
And we are so excited to have our young people participate in worship. And even during this time, we've had some of our young people participating through reading and taking pictures of things that they've drawn or colored. And so anytime that we can get people of any age involved with worship, it's wonderful. So thank you
Uh-huh.
for organizing that.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what activities are you involved in at St. Paul?
Well, I go back in time to think of the day when I would come to church on a Sunday. I would sit up in the balcony, I would participate in the service, and I'd go home and not show up to the next Sunday. And then one Sunday, our custodian, our facility manager at that time, he was running the sound system, which they did back then. And he asked me if I'd like to get involved in operating the sound. And I said I would. And that got me going, I guess, as far as activities with the church. And I remember the 175th that Mimi had mentioned about as well,
Yeah.
participating in that. And then, being an engineering background, Billy McLemore, as I remember, approached me, I don't know, 2016, 17, wanted to know if I'd be interested in joining the Business and Property Board. And I said, sure. And I became very active and interested in what they were doing and was on that for, I guess, until last year or so. And so in the meantime, of course, I was ushering as well. And then I became the head usher. And we decided that the worship board, which was active at that time, would needed my input, or I needed their input, primarily theirs. So I was on the worship board for a couple of years. At the same time, I was on Vincent Property Board. So, and then of course, got onto the council, and then obviously took over as president here 1st of March of this year. So really excited, looking forward to everything we're doing or going to do the rest of this year as well. So
Right.
been quite involved in a lot of activities other than those boards, around the church. Anything needed, I was always trying to help out, at least if I could. So that's kind of a little background on activities for sure.
Well, and I know you're president during a very unique year of
Absolutely.
of a pandemic, of quarantine, of us trying to navigate something that we haven't navigated, at least not in over 100 years.
That's right.
So I appreciate all of your guidance and the guidance of our executive council, our church council, and others, because this is new territory for all of us. So
Yeah.
it's been a journey. So thank you for your leadership on that. So yeah, and
Obviously, there's been no council or board of officers that have experienced what we're going through now for a long time.
no.
We're doing things differently for sure.
No, and we have had some meetings. We've had
Right.
Executive council met by Zoom,
Right.
and we've had our council meet by Zoom, and we've done
Right.
we've done some meetings about the eventual the reopening process by Zoom. So
Absolutely.
so, and then of course our social hours and things. So I know you're on a lot of those meetings with us and leading many of those for us. So thank you for doing that too.
Sure.
So why should someone check out St. Paul UCC, whether online or eventually in person?
Well, I think it's a very friendly church, as has been mentioned before by Mimi, I know, and people are willing to help out when needed. All you got to do is ask them, and you don't find that at all churches. I've been to other churches, and it's not quite the same. And so, I think you're welcome when you come in the door, and that's what we try to do now as well too. So, I think it's a worthwhile adventure to do that.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And I know when I started there, of course, I'm the pastor, but I felt very welcome, and my mom did too. So,
Sure.
so it's it is a very welcoming congregation.
Right.
So, what kind of, I'm not sure, do you have any pets, or are you a pet person?
Well, I've been around dogs all my life. I remember as a kid, my mom had dogs from the time I could walk and until I left there, and had some dogs since. And I like cats as well, but been around dogs more than the other. So, yeah, that's my specialty there, I guess you might say.
Okay. And I know I had that on there last week, that question last week for Mimi, because I know she's a cat person.
Right.
And I also had the question, where did you go to high school? But I know you went in South Carolina. So what city was it in?
Well, it's kind of unique there too. I lived in a town called West Columbia, South Carolina, which is across the river from Columbia, which is the capital of South Carolina. And prior to me coming along, before I was born, West Columbia was called New Brooklyn for some reason. I'm still not sure why. I don't think I ever was told. In the town next to us is called Cayce, C-A-Y-C-E. And the high school itself was in Cayce, and it adopted the name of Brooklyn Cayce long before I was born.
Okay.
So that's where I graduated from in 1957, was Brooklyn Cayce. And then I went to the university, commuted each day as a student there the whole time I was going there to the university.
And what university did you go to again?
University of South Carolina. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And my father ran a grocery store, and he expected all of us to work.
Okay.
Even my sister and my other two brothers. So every day when school would be over for me or them at the university, in my case, we were back at the store working until they closed. So
Wow.
he kept us busy.
Yes. Um, so you have family in South Carolina then?
Yeah, I do. I still have a sister and two brothers and their families, and still some cousins and that sort of thing. So, and I try to get there, every year and a half or so if I can. So
Okay.
they're all younger than me, so
Okay.
they're there with their families. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. And so, what other hobbies do you have?
Are you still there, Michelle?
I am still here.
Oops. Okay.
I know sometimes the connection can be a little bit not so good.
Okay.
So what other hobbies do you have?
Well, I guess I have a couple. We have a St. Paul bowling team
Yes.
that a lot of people don't know about, and we bowl on Tuesday nights at St. Clair Bowl when we don't have the virus going. And at one time we were a church league. We had like 9 churches in this league, and some of the churches dropped off with their teams, and we still have a couple.
Okay.
But we've been bowling up there for like 20 years, and I've been the captain for the last 5 or 6.
Oh, nice.
So always enjoy that. We used to have all St. Paul members as bowlers, but we still have 1 or 2. One is a past member, and another is one of our past custodians. He bowls with us as well.
Very good.
So, I enjoy that in the fall and winter and spring. And then as far as other hobbies, Donna Davis, of course, tries to keep a St. Paul bowling or golf team going. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And I try to participate in that as well in the summer. And we also try to join the Hoyleton golf tournament that is put on typically in July, but this year I think it's postponed to October 2nd. And we always have 2 teams there, both are golfing. And I guess the other hobby I have is working because I've worked so many years, like 35 with the federal government, and now I've 22 years with the state government. So adding them up, and I think it keeps you young. It keeps you going, keeps you energized and alerts and that sort of thing. So that's why I keep it up, I guess. I could retire at any moment, but I haven't. So I've got that option out there, though. So I enjoy those 3 things for sure.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, and you're still working, so you're working from home mostly right now?
Yeah, I do get in the office periodically,
Okay.
but there are strict rules on going and coming, and only allow so many in the office. And we had a webinar with our director yesterday about how things are going to be for the next month, and so we're all up to speed on staying at home for another 30 days, so to speak. But there's still people that do go in and work from the office periodically, and I'm one of those as well.
Okay. That's good. And so I have a question that I got from the show inside the actor studio where James Lipton asks a number of questions at the end of the show. And there's one that he asks, and it's this: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
Well, I guess I'd like to hear welcome your faithful servant and that sort of thing, and hope to see all of my family and friends that have preceded me, particularly family members. And that's, I guess, what you can hopefully expect. Most you could expect, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you would like to add to this interview?
No, I guess I said earlier I was a transplanted Southerner, and I am, but I'm local now. Not been gone 50 something years, so I'm not really a Southerner anymore. But I do have some friends there and still some family. So, but I enjoy this area, and I enjoy the church, and trying to help out in any way I can. And I depend on you and Mimi to give me guidance to go through this rest of this year with challenges and that we face, particularly right now. So hopefully we'll get through it, and I'm sure we will. I have confidence that we will.
I believe so, and you know, we're already thinking ahead to how to when people are able to come back, how to safely do it. So
Right.
you know, just to make sure that things are done in the safest ways possible. So
Hmm. I
um,
agree.
you knowing the building so well and everything will be you know, that's definitely a big help to us. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today, and
Thank you.
blessings to you, and stay well, stay healthy during this time. And I hope to see you in the near future, face to face and in person, not just face to face on Zoom, but
I
at
agree
least
with that.
we have this technology, at least in the meantime. So
Uh,
thank you for joining me on Zoom today.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.